All right, it's about that time, so we'll go ahead and get started here. So first, I want to welcome everyone to the IAC Acoustics Accutone2 Medical and Life Sciences webinar. My name is Jeremy Vizza, and I'm the Architectural Sales Engineer at IAC Acoustics. And today we're going to discuss the IAC Accutone2 Series medical enclosures. So during the presentation, if you have any questions or notes or anything you want to discuss, feel free to type it into the GoToWebinar application. There's a chat box as well as a question box. And at the end of the presentation, I'll take a look in both of those boxes and answer whatever may be in there. So before I get into the product, I want to talk a little bit about just IAC Acoustics and who we are and that type of thing. So IAC Acoustics is part of the Catalyst Acoustics Group. That is the parent company. They're the parent company of an elite group of all different kinds of noise control companies. They offer a broad portfolio of sound control solutions. This includes acoustic, seismic, vibration, as well as noise control and sound control. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that. Noise control and sound control, they're different. They're two different things. So majority of the work that IAC does is in controlling noise. That's exactly what this product line that we're going to talk about is. That's what it's intended to do. But there is products out there that are intended to control the sound. And really, the difference is this. I like to explain it like this. Noise is your neighbor mowing their lawn. Sound is you mowing your lawn. And music is your neighbor mowing your lawn, if you will. My point here is the terms are all completely subjective. It's the same sound or noise that you're hearing. It's coming from the same source, but it's being perceived differently, right? So sound is, it's not, let me say it like this, noise is unwanted. Sound, you're trying to tune something, right? Like you can tune the acoustics of a room. We call that sound. Noise is, you just want to get rid of it. So the IAC Acoustics Medical and Life Sciences team is consisted of a few of us here. So we have Tom Hines. He is the director of IAC Acoustics. He's actually been with the company for over 19 years. He's got exceptional product knowledge and experience. He was actually an installer for quite some time. He installed all of the IAC products. He's done some of the largest installations to date at the company. And he just has a wealth of knowledge just overall about IAC as well as the installation aspect of it. Then there's me, Jeremy Vizza, again, the architectural sales engineer. I have a bachelor's degree in acoustics from Columbia College in Chicago, and I've been with IAC for about 3 years now. And then we have Rick E.T. He's the architectural sales estimator. He actually spent 20 years working in the manufacturing facility, so he has a lot of knowledge on how the product is actually built, you know, what goes into it, what are the capabilities, what are the limitations, things like that. So when you have Tom with the installation experience and knowledge and just overall experience of IAC, you got Rick with the manufacturing knowledge, and then myself with the acoustic background. We really make a great team, and there's not a lot of things that we can't accomplish if we all work together and put our minds to it. So again, briefly before we get into the actual product, I want to talk a little bit about what gives IAC an advantage over some other manufacturers. The first one I want to talk about is the in-house powder coating line. So having this in-house is a massive advantage because it eliminates the need to outsource. When you outsource your powder coating, you can lengthen your lead time substantially. You gotta think about it. So, you know, if I have a door I need to get powder coated and I have to outsource that powder coating, I have to crate that door, ship it to the powder coater. That could be a day, could be a few days, who knows. Then once that material arrives at the powder coater, you got to get in line, right? Let's say the powder coater just started a job of, I don't know, say 10,000 mufflers or whatever it may be. They're probably not going to stop the line, change the powder just to run my one door through. So I got to get in line and wait for them to finish their product, and then they can start my project, right? And then they have to crate it, send it back to us. And what if when my quality department is, you know, they're inspecting it, what if they find an imperfection? Whether it be a scratch or a bubble or like a chipped piece of paint. Well, guess what? We got to recrate it, send it right back to them. So when you start outsourcing things, especially the powder coat, your lead time can increase dramatically. And so that's one advantage that we have, because again, we have that in-house. So if there's an imperfection that we notice, well, we'll throw it right back on the line, send it right back through the oven, through the powder coater, and fix it right there and then. We also have proprietary multi-head spot welders. So what we do here is we run the product through the spot welders being welded 4 inches on center. And then what we do is we slide the material over 2 inches. We hit the button again, we run it through for a second time. So at this point, it's actually 2 inches on center. And this is really beneficial because, in our specification, we call for 4 inches on center, right? Well, if these welds fail 50% of the time, because we slide it over 2 inches and run it again, we would actually still meet our own specification, even if the welds were failing 50% of the time, which it doesn't happen. That's all hypothetical, of course. But the point is, it's 2 inches on center, so it's actually better than what we specify, but it gives us a little bit of cushion there, right? We also have top of the line amount of punch presses, press brakes, and shears. So IAC Acoustics guarantees the performance of all products with laboratory test data. Any data that you see published about the acoustic performance, we have lab data that was done in an accredited laboratory with a third-party consultant present. We have the actual test reports for all of that data. We don't ever publish anything that's not backed by a legitimate test report. And we also have a library of past project templates, designs, and drawings. So it's actually rare for us to come across a problem that we haven't addressed previously. There are times I'll get a phone call or an email from a customer saying they got, there's a new issue that we haven't dealt with and this and that. While that may be true, odds are it's not. There are, IAC's been around since 1949, and we have a lot of, drawings and just reference jobs that we can look back on. Most of the time, the issues that you may be up against have been addressed previously. So we have a lot that we can look back on and use, lessons learned from previous jobs and things like that. IAC Acoustics also has UL listings for electrical and fire. The doors can have a UL fire rating of up to 90 minutes with a wood veneer, and a UL fire rating of up to 180 minutes without wood veneer. All of the IAC electrical components are UL listed, as well as the assemblies, and every electrical panel is going to have its own individual UL tag, which you can see on the picture on the bottom right there. That's just a demonstration of what each electrical panel is going to have on it. It's got the UL tag there. Now, this picture on the left of the door, there's a couple reasons why I chose to include this picture. One is it shows our door hanging in the rack in our facility. So IAC hangs and swings every door that comes through the shop. The reason we do this is to ensure proper fit, finish, and function in the field. So, they'll hang the door, and we have tolerances, across the jambs and the head of the door. So they'll take they'll measure it. They'll measure the, like what our tolerances are, and if it's out of line a little bit, they can shim, they can do whatever they need to do to make it meet spec. Also, they install all the pertinent hardware while it's hanging in the rack. And the reason they do that is to make sure, again, that it's all working properly. And it goes back to ensuring proper fit, finish, and function in the field. So you can see on this door, there's a latching lock set on there. I believe it's a mortise lock set of some sort. And then there's also a closer in the top left of that door. So all of that is installed and tested in our facility to make sure it's all operational. So this thing's going to show up ready to just be installed and operational. This is also a wood veneer door. So it's got a nice veneer on there. So what they do is, it's actually a pretty in-depth process. They bring the door into the veneer room. They have to let it acclimate for, I believe it's 24 hours. Then they apply the veneer. They actually wrap all exposed edges. So there's really not a chance of someone bumping into this door and chipping it, right? They don't hold it short of the edge. They actually wrap it and seals and all that stuff. They actually get installed on top of that wrap. And then there's also the window in there. So this is just a really good demonstration of the capabilities that IAC has, specifically with the doors, as well as part of our QC process. Again, hanging every single door in the rack to ensure the proper fit, finish, and function in the field. Another part of the QC process is to take pictures of every door in the open and closed position while it's hanging in the rack. This is something that we call a secondary submittal, and we have one of these for every door that comes through. So we can provide it upon request. So you'll have there's pictures of the door with all the hardware installed hanging in the rack with the door closed and the door open. Now let's say you have a door coordinator on there. Let's say there's like a double leaf door, right? And you need you need those two doors to close in the proper sequence. We'll actually have video footage of those doors closing in the proper sequence using the coordinator. So we have all that, and again, that's called the secondary submittal. It's not a lot of people do it, so it's one big advantage that IAC has. And again, it's all part of the quality control. So IAC has the ability to provide guidance based upon product expertise and practical experience. We like to conduct job site surveys prior to the submittal. And the reason we can do that, the reason we like to do this is to verify the existing site conditions before any product will arrive on site. Now, that's a big deal there. This one really sticks out to me. We like to do that because it eliminates the potential issue of having product arrive on site that is too large to fit into, let's say, an elevator or fit through the clear opening of a door. The reason I say this one sticks out to me is because one of the first projects I did with IAC, that was a step that I missed. And I had product arrive on site that was too big. They couldn't get it onto the floor they needed. There's a couple of solutions there. One, you can have your installer cut the material, bring it to the right floor, try to put it back together and make it look nice. It's incredibly difficult to do and something I would not suggest. The other one is remake the product at a different size so that it can fit in the elevator and ship it out to them as quickly as you can. Both of those solutions are incredibly expensive and really not a good way to do it. So we like to do the job site survey prior to the submittal so we can go in there and measure the elevator. Okay, we can only have an 8 foot, 8 foot is the longest piece of material that we can have in here. So we have a pretty thorough submittal process, but we do have the potential to expedite that submittal process. So if you have a project that has a shortened timeline, that's no problem at all. We can expedite the submittal. So our lead time is 2 weeks. So when you place an order, it's 2 weeks to, within that 2 weeks, you'll have the submittal package in your hands. Now, let's say you need it within a day or two, a day or two. That's no problem at all. I was actually a project manager for IAC before I went into the sales side of things. So I built these submittal packages a lot, and if you need a quick turnaround, I can absolutely help out the engineering team and get that done for you. We also use highly skilled and experienced installers. That's how we're able to guarantee the performance of all fully assembled products during the turnover to the owner. There's only a handful of installers that we use, and the reason for this is, they're factory trained, and they really know the importance of minute details. So there are certain things that we do during installation that may not seem all that important to the naked eye or to an untrained eye, but really those little minute details are how we get the performance that we get. They're incredibly important to the acoustic performance of this material. So the installers that we use, they know that, and they won't skip over little steps like that that some people may just not see as important. And again, that's how we're able to guarantee the performance of all the fully assembled products in the field. So enough of that jargon. Let's actually get into the product that you guys are all here to learn about. This is the IAC Accutone2 series. It's what houses all of the medical and life sciences products. And the slogan for this is any size, any shape, and any color. Also, we threw another line in there for the slogan. The end of it is with no exposed fasteners. So there are 5 main categories in the Accutone2 Audiometric booth family that I'm going to focus on. You have the 252 and 254 mini booths. You have the single and double wall classic audiometric booths, the single and double wall audiometric suites, the single and double wall multi-person testing booths, and then the enhancement packages. So up first is the IAC Acoustics 252 and 254 mini booths. The only difference between the two is the size and therefore the weight, but they can both fit through a standard 3070 door. So these mini booths have a design that is engineered to allow flexibility in any environment, and they can be quickly transformed to achieve a right or a left-hand configuration, as you can see in this picture. There's actually 2 doors on every mini booth that we manufacture. So what you can do here is, whether you want the right or the left-hand configuration, you can choose whatever door you want to open, and the other door actually locks. So there's a little latch on top, so you can lock that door, and then if you look at the door on the right, you can actually notice there's a fabric panel there. So let's say the door on the right is the one that you're going to lock and it's not going to be opening, right? Well, you lock that door and you install that fabric panel, so you can barely even tell there's a door there. So it's very easy to switch between a right or a left hand depending on the configuration of your space. And this is actually all possible without any disassembly of components. It requires no tools, and it can be done by any staff member. Again, it's just a little latch on top that locks the door. These booths are also on casters to allow for ready positioning and mobility. However, if you are in a space where structure-borne noise is a concern, we can install isolation pucks in lieu of the casters. So obviously you're going to reduce your mobility if you get rid of the wheels, but you'll increase your the vibration isolation. Sorry, I was missing the word there. So we try to keep 5 of each of these mini booths in stock at a time. But we actually have the capabilities to manufacture them quickly. So all that to be said, we have a maximum of 2 weeks for the lead time with these booths. Now, if you send me an order for 100 of them, that 2 weeks might change, obviously, but 99% of the time with a mini booth order, whether it's 1, 5, or 10, 2 weeks is the lead time. So these booths come off of the fabrication line fully assembled and ready for in-field placement. And if you're interested in these booths, actually check out the ISD Acoustics YouTube channel. There is a Did You Know video posted there with yours truly talking about these booths, and I go into a lot more detail about them. So again, feel free to check that out. It's on the IAC Acoustics YouTube channel. So the next category that I'm going to focus on is the classic audiometric booth series. This includes the 40A single wall, 800A enhanced single wall, and 120A double wall models. So the 40A series has a 4-inch thick single wall construction, and it uses one STC 51 door. All this together produces a performance of NIC 50. You can also add a 1-inch enhancement package to the interior, which will effectively give you a 3-point jump. It'll bring it to NIC 53. Now, if you take a look at the brochure for the 40A series, you're going to notice there's a lot of standard sizes listed there, anywhere from 3'4" all the way up to 11'10". I'm sorry, 11 foot by 10 foot. But keep in mind the motto here: any size, any shape, and any color. Those standard sizes are really just starting points. If a standard size works perfect for you, so be it. If you need to change a dimension off of a standard, don't worry about it. We can absolutely do that. And just because you're moving off of a standard does not mean the price is automatically going to go up. I hear that a lot. People get concerned. They don't want to move off of a standard. Don't worry about it. We can accommodate it, again, any size, any shape, and any color. So our standard interior height for these booths is 6 foot and 6 inches. Now, the reason for this is that'll allow the booth to be able to fit into a host facility that has an 8-foot ceiling height. However, we can manufacture these as tall as you want them to be, or as short as you want them to be. We buy our sheet steel in 12-foot lengths, and we have to cut it down to make it 6'6". So if you want it to be 8 foot or 10 foot or 12 foot for that matter, no problem. We're cutting the material out of a 12-foot piece of steel. So if you want it to be 12 foot, that's all good. It's already right there. We just don't have to cut anything out. If you want it to be 10 foot, that's fine too. We just have to cut less, right? So, and since it's coming out of the same piece of material, your price doesn't dramatically increase because you increase the height. So just keep that in mind. So this is the 800A series. This uses a 4-inch thick panel as well as a 4-inch thick interior enhancement package. So that gives you a total 8-inch thick wall system. We also use a 3.5-inch thick STC 61 door. All this together will give you an NIC of 60. Now, if you take a look at this brochure, you're going to notice a whole list of standard sizes. But again, those are starting points. You can move off of them if you want to. So the enhancement package, what is this? Well, it consists of a few things. One, it has metal liner panels 2, it's got fabric wrap panels, and 3, it's got a chair rail. So the chair rail covers the joint of the metal panels and the fabric panels. I actually have a slide dedicated to the enhancement package, so I'll go into that in a little bit more detail coming up here. So this is the 120A series, the double wall. So it has 2 4-inch thick panels with a 4-inch airspace in between the 2. That gives you a total 12-inch thick wall construction. And we actually use 2 STC 51 doors. So that gives you a performance of NIC 70. Now, I want you to take a look at this drawing on the left here, the typical plan. You can see the 2 doors there, right? It's got the in-swing and the out-swing door. We actually have the option to switch to a tandem out swing. So if you want both of them to swing out, we can do that. So what that means is you pull the outer door open and the inner door is going to open with it. There's a little mechanism that connects the 2, and so they swing together. Oh, why would you do that? There's a couple reasons why you would do that. Let's say you have a small double wall room. There's not a lot of room on the inside of it. You know, let's say it's one of the smaller standard sizes. You probably don't want a 3-foot door swinging in if there's not a lot of room to begin with. You know, whoever's in there, you're going to be running into them with the door. That's a good reason that you would switch to the tandem outswing. Or let's just say you like to look better. That's what you want. You only want to have to open 1 door. You don't want to have to close 2 doors, right? That's another option. Another reason that you would switch to the tandem outswing. So this is the performance chart. It shows the noise reduction for the NIC 50, 53, 60, and 70 rooms. This chart is listed on majority of the literature that IAC posts on its website. We actually have test reports that I can send upon request, but we have test reports for all of this information here. So I'm not gonna stay on this one too long. Just know that you can find this on majority of the IAC literature that's posted on our website. You actually may be able to find just this performance chart listed on the website. But again, if you're curious or you want to talk more about this specifically, I'd be happy to go into more detail with you. So just feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Either way is fine with me. So these are the ACT series suites. They all include a control room and an exam room. So there's 5 options to choose from regarding the model. You have the 40 ACT, 800 ACT, the 120, 140, and the 160 ACT. So the 40 ACT is very similar to the 40A. It's actually 2 of them put together. So you have the single wall control room and the single wall exam room. Again, both 4-inch thick wall construction, and each room has an STC 51 door. So each room is going to give you an NIC 50, right? So you can see if you look at the drawing, they're actually just 2 independent single wall rooms, but they have the window, the viewing window in between each. So you have the control and the exam, right? So you can look at the patient. The audiologist or whoever it may be can look at whoever's in the exam room or the test room. And again, if you look at this brochure, you're going to see a bunch of different standard sizes. But I'm going to repeat myself over and over again because I see it happen one too many times. But people get scared to move off of the standard sizes because they automatically think the price is just going to skyrocket. It's not the case. So again, you're going to hear me say that a lot. Just don't feel that you're glued to those standard sizes. Now, there's also the option to integrate these 2 rooms into one another. What I mean by that is you can share that middle wall. So you can remove one of the walls in the airspace and just have 1 wall in between the 2 rooms. Why would you do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, let's say there's not a lot of room in the host facility. You got to shave off some inches, right? So if you remove that wall, you're effectively removing 8 inches from your overall width, right? Because you have the 4-inch wall and the 4-inch airspace. That's one good reason. Another reason is maybe the room-to-room performance isn't that important to you. It doesn't need to be as high performing as having 2 walls, right? Or let's say you want to reduce your cost a little bit. Well, obviously removing panels is going to reduce the cost a little bit. So there's a few reasons that you would switch to the shared wall rather than the integrated rooms rather than the independent rooms. So this is the 800 ACT series. Again, this is very similar to the 800A series. So the control room is just a single wall room. That's your typical 40A room, right? But if you look at the exam room or the test room, if you will, that's your 800A series. So it's got the 4-inch enhancement package on the inside. So your single wall room, the control room is the single wall. It's got a 4-inch wall system. The test room is your enhanced single wall. It's got the 8-inch system. So your control room is going to give you an NIC of 50, and your exam room is going to give you an NIC of 60. Again, with the standard sizes, don't be glued to them. Just use them as starting points. So if you gotta get off of a standard, let me know. No problem at all. We can absolutely do that. This also has the option of sharing that inner wall there. Again, if you need to, lose some inches on the width, or the room-to-room performance isn't that critical, or you just want to shave off some dollars on the cost, those are all good reasons why you would share that middle wall. So this is the 120 ACT series. It's a double wall control room and a double wall exam room. Both have the 12-inch thick wall construction, and they both have the STC 51 doors. Each of these rooms are going to give you an NIC 70 performance. Now, I already kind of touched on it, but you can switch both of these to tandem outswing doors rather than the in outswing if you like. You can also share that middle wall if you'd like. It's pretty much open to what you want to do. Any size, any shape, and any color. That is the motto here, and it's true. So just keep that in mind. Now, these next two are a little bit interesting. It's the 140 ACT and the 160 ACT. So the 140 is a single wall control room and an integrated double wall exam room. I'm going to switch to the 160 quickly. This is the single wall control room with an independent double wall exam room. Now I'm going to switch back and forth. I want you to take a look at the drawings here and really just look at what the difference is. So the 160 is independent, and the 140, the rooms are integrated. You can see the only difference there is we shared one of those walls. On the 160, you got 3 walls in between the rooms. Or if you go to the 140, you only got 2. That's literally the only difference of these 2 rooms. Now, again, why would you choose, how are you going to choose the 160 over the 140? Well, if room-to-room performance is extremely critical to what you're going to be using these booths for, that's a really good, it's a good reason to choose the 160 because you have the 3 walls with the 2 airspaces. So the 140's only got the 2 walls and the 1 airspace. Also, if you want to save a little bit of cost, but you want that, the double wall exam and the single wall control, you can go with the 140 because you're going to save some money there because, again, we're removing one of these walls, one of the center walls entirely. So there's a few reasons why you would do that. It's really up to you. We can certainly accomplish whatever you may be up against. So, just keep it in mind. Now, this picture illustrates the height capabilities that we have. And I already kind of touched on this, but I'm going to go over it one more time because I think it's really important. We buy our stock steel in 12-foot lengths, okay? And that's how we can increase the height without having a major increase to the cost. Because if we do a standard interior height room, we're still cutting that length out of the 12-foot sheet, right? If you want a 12-foot room, no problem. We just don't have to cut anything off. We can actually do a booth that is taller than 12 feet. And the way we would accomplish that is we would stagger the wall panels and include some structural support, some structural members. I know we've done some rooms that were incredibly tall. I would say, probably 25 feet, if not taller. So we have the capabilities. We can absolutely do it. So if that's, for whatever reason, something that you're interested in, we can do it. So just bring it up and talk to us about it, and we'll be happy to at least put together an example drawing of what it would look like. So these are the MultiMan Audiometric booths. These are offered in the 40M single wall series and the 120M double wall series. Again, the single wall is an NIC 50. The double wall is an NIC 70. So these rooms are provided with curtains. They have divider curtains that go in between each station. However, we can actually substitute that for fabric wrap panels if you'd like. It does make it, takes up a little bit more room as you can't push the fabric panels into the wall like you can a curtain. It doesn't just fold up on itself, but it does add more absorption. So if you're looking for that, it also gives it almost a better look. So those are a couple of reasons why you would want the fabric wrap panels in lieu of the curtains. But again, it's all up to you. The room will perform if you use the divider curtains. Just know that there is the option to use fabric wrap panels instead. So these rooms have an occupancy range from 1 to 10, listed as our standard. However, we have done rooms that hold 12 and even up to 14 people. We can go up to 20. We can even go higher than that if you want. I'm not sure why you would need that. Point is, we can make it happen. So if you want a room with 20 stations in it, no problem at all. Let me know. It might take some creative engineering, but we have the team for that. So point is, just, we have the capabilities to do it. So just let us know. So each station inside of one of these rooms is going to have a station jack plate, which consists of quantity 3 quarter-inch plugs, quarter-inch jacks. And then on the front wall of this booth, you're going to have a master jack plate, and that's going to have enough quarter-inch jacks to accommodate each station. We also have the capabilities to do custom jack plates. So if the quarter-inch jacks aren't enough for you, or you want more than just the 3, or you want to throw in some of your own connectors, that's no problem at all. All we need to know is what kind of connectors you need and how many of each, and we can actually get them custom fabricated for us to be installed when the booth gets installed. So the enhancement package, I keep talking about it. What is it? So here you can see the IAC options for the color of panels, carpet, and fabric wrap panels. Now this chart may be a little bit difficult to read. If that's the case, certainly let me know and I can send you a digital copy for your own review. So there's a lot of options to choose from when it comes to customizing this booth. So the picture on the left demonstrates what the interior enhancement package actually looks like. So you have the metal liner panel on the bottom, the fabric wrap panel on the top, and then, like I said, that chair rail covering the 2 joints. Also, if you take a look at the joint of the floor and the wall, you're going to see the black cove molding there, as well as if you take a look at the ceiling in the wall joint, there's the black cove molding up there. So you have the black cove molding and the black chair rail, they really coincide with each other, and it gives it just a nice look. It makes it more aesthetically pleasing, if you will. Now, there's also an option to use floor-to-ceiling fabric wrap panels, full length is what I call it. If you don't want the metal liner panel on the bottom, you can make the whole thing fabric. Why would you do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, let's say you want more absorption in the room. You want it to be a dead room for, whatever it may be that you're doing in there. You need it to be more dead. That's a good reason to switch to just the full length fabric panels. Also, let's say weight is a concern. When you add a metal liner panel, you're obviously going to be adding more weight than if you add a fabric wrap panel. So, let's say you want to decrease the weight a little bit. That's another great reason to switch to the full length fabric. I unfortunately don't have a picture of that. I could probably do some digging and find one if you're interested. Certainly let me know. So now that you're familiar with the different models and performances that are offered, how do you actually go about designing one of these rooms? There's a few things you got to take into consideration. The obvious ones are the desired performance and desired booth model. These are 2 massive decisions to make, and they're really the starting point for any of these. So you need to figure out, do you want the single wall, the enhanced single wall, or the double wall? Again, NIC 50, 53, 60, or 70. Then you got to think about what kind of model do you want? Do you just want the classic series, which is just a single booth? Do you want the ACT series that has the control and the exam booths put together to make a suite? Or do you need a multi-person, right? So do you need to be able to test, 6 people up at once? Or do you need the mini booths? Maybe for Occ Health stuff, a mini booth would be sufficient. So again, those are the 2 starting points, in my opinion, when you're designing one of these rooms. You got to figure out what performance you need, and you got to figure out what kind of booth you want. You also have to consider if there are host facility constraints, such as the host room height, or if there is a support column in the way. Now, talking about the support beam, if there is one in the way, that's no problem at all. We can jog around that beam pretty easily. All we got to know is the location of it, the dimensions of it. A few pictures would help. We'll actually just jog around it. We'll make a corner and just notch around that support beam. One aspect that I see that's missed quite frequently is if there are any local, state, or federal requirements, such as if the room needs to be ADA compliant. If it does, IAC has multiple options to choose from in order to make ADA compliance easier to achieve. And I'm going to say that again. We will help make ADA compliance easier to achieve. Okay? I'm not going to tell you that we're going to guarantee ADA compliance, because we just won't. We'll do everything we can to make it easier to achieve. The biggest part of this is the step up into the room, how steep it is, because the steeper the step up is, the larger the ramp you need. So we don't actually do ramps. We just don't. So that's why I can't tell you that we can get you an ADA compliant booth, but we can make it easier for you to achieve. Okay, so our standard floor system is 6 1/8 inch thick, but we have numerous low profile options to choose from. We can do no floor, so you don't even need a ramp, there's just no floor. Your noise reduction remains the same, okay? So if you have an NSE 50 room, you still got an NSE 50 room in terms of noise reduction if you remove that floor. But you open the door to structure-borne noise. So if that's a concern of yours, let's say you're in Chicago, you're right by the elevated train there, the L, you don't want to get rid of that floor because there's a lot of vibration coming in every time a train goes by. So that's a really good example of structure-borne noise. So you got to think about that. If you're going down the route of removing the floor entirely, you really got to think about what's around your building that's going to get through. What kind of vibration's going on? We also have a 1/2 inch floor system. We got a 4 inch. There's a whole laundry list of different floor options that we have. That's why I didn't list it here, because there's just so many. It would take up, probably 2 or 3 slides, and it would take me an hour to talk about all of them. So if you're interested in that, I'm happy to go through each one in more detail with you. Feel free to reach out to me, send me an email, give me a call, and we can go into the floor options in a lot more detail. Another design consideration you want to think about is what kind of electrical you're going to need on the inside. So what comes standard with these booths is just one duplex receptacle and a toggle switch for the lights and one for the fans. But there's options to add quad receptacles, dimmer switches, or empty electrical boxes that you can use for data drops, phone drops, fire strobes, thermostats, anything like that. But again, standard is just one duplex and 2 toggle switches, one for the fans, one for the lights. Now, I chose this picture in particular because there's a lot of electricity going on in there, right? If you only got one duplex, that's nowhere near enough. So you really want to think about, what are you going to be putting on the inside of this booth? What kind of electrical are you going to be running in there? Because if you need a quad receptacle, or maybe you have so much equipment that you need, multiple duplex receptacles, we can certainly accomplish that. And if you have so much so much electrical going into there, we can actually provide separate dedicated circuits, right? But typically you're going to have one dedicated circuit on the roof of this booth. But if you got just a lot of juice that you're going to be pulling, we can provide 2 dedicated circuits. So but you're going to have to plug them in to your own dedicated, but we can certainly route it so that you're able to do that. So the electrical is a big one to think about. Again, if you have a lot of equipment that you need to run, you're going to need more electricity. You're going to need more places to plug in, right? So certainly think about that. Again, that's another one that I see missed quite a bit. People want to set up all this equipment, but they only have one duplex, and it just doesn't, it's just not enough. So certainly think about it. Also, fire strobes are a big one. In a lot of places that these booths go into, like hospitals and things, they have to have a fire strobe in there. Or we could do sprinkler heads. We will drill the hole. We won't actually install the sprinkler head, but we'll drill the hole and prepare it for a sprinkler head to be installed. So these are all things you just want to think about. What kind of codes, whether it be federal, local, state, doesn't matter, whatever it may be. You want to think about what kind of codes you're going to be up against here. Again, ADA compliance is a big one. The fire code is another big one. So you definitely want to think about that. So that's actually all I have for you today. So if there's any questions, definitely type them into the question box. I'm happy to answer them. Let's see, it says, for the ACT suites, are closure plates provided in between the 2 rooms? That's a great question. And I've gotten that question before. I always tell myself I'm going to add it to the presentation, and I just always forget. So the question is, for the 160 ACT, for example, you have a 4-inch airspace that's exposed, right? If you look at the control room and the test room, there's an airspace there that's exposed because these are independent booths. So the question really is there a plate that's going to cover that, or is there just going to be an exposed airspace there? So we do provide the closure plate that covers that middle gap. We can also provide closure plates that will tie into either side of the booth as well as on the roof. And the point of that is to kind of close off the booth to the host facility. So you can have this thing in a room, and we can tie off with a closure plate to either side. So it'll be attached to our booth, and it'll attach to your host facility wall. And again, we can also do it on the ceiling. So it really just gives it a more finished look. It looks a lot nicer. And it kind of just integrates it into the host facility. So it's not just, doesn't look just like it's placed there. It looks like it's part of the facility, you know? So that's a really good question. I got to remember to add that to this presentation. Here's another one. What size pass-throughs are available? That's another great question. So pass-throughs. We have 3 standard sizes. And what a pass-through is, it's a tube that's running through the booth. So let's say you have, you know, let's say, I'm going to use the VGA connector. If you don't know what that is, it's a really fat connector that plugs into a computer, usually for a monitor, if you will. But it's kind of a big connector. So you really won't be able to run that through the door. Obviously, you can't close it, and the door won't seal if you run it through there. So you need a place to pass that into the room. That's what a pass-through is. It allows you to move cables and things like that into the room without affecting the performance. So we have 3 standard sizes. We have the 2-inch, the 3-inch, and the 4-inch. Now those are interior diameters, okay? I've actually done a job where we use the 6-inch diameter pass-through. So we can do bigger than that if you want. It starts to get really massive, and as you get larger and larger in the diameter, the performance will be affected, because you got to think about what you're doing. You're just effectively putting a massive hole into that room. So you definitely want to limit the size of it. But if you use a 2 or 3 or a 4-inch, the performance is still there. You also, you know, if you think about wavelength, a lot of it can't escape through that small of a hole, if you will. Now, I hope there's no acousticians on the line, because they may prove me wrong here. But point is, the 2, the 3, or the 4-inch will be just fine in terms of performance. Also, if you use, like, let's say we do RF shielding on a booth, we can actually do steel pass-throughs to keep up the RF shielding performance. So we certainly have a lot of capabilities with the pass-throughs there. So again, if there's any questions, please type them into the question box or the chat box. This is my my cell phone number right there, by the way. Feel free to write it down and use it. It's always a lot easier to get to me on my cell. So you can text me, you can call me. That's also my email. Send me an email. I'm happy to talk in more detail with anyone about, you know, whatever they may be up against, whether it be just questions about the product, or you want to talk about a job that's coming up, or, you know, a potential issue that you're going to run into, or something like that. That's what I'm here for. So feel free to use that contact info. I'm more than happy to help. So I don't see any more questions coming in. If one comes to your head later on in the day or next week, whenever it may be, again, give me a call, send me an email. Doesn't matter which way you do it. I'm happy to help. So I want to thank you all for attending the IAC Acoustics Accutone2 Medical and Life Sciences webinar. I know your time is valuable, and I really appreciate you spending some of it with me here today. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, or you just want to talk in more detail about a product, please feel free to contact me at your convenience. Also, take a look at the IAC Acoustics YouTube channel. We have Did You Know videos. These are informational videos about majority of our products. And you can also, all the salespeople, they're on video there, so you can start putting a face to the voice, if you will. But go on the IAC Acoustics YouTube channel. There's a lot of good videos there. You can learn really just a lot about our products and things like that. And again, I want to thank you all, and I hope you all stay safe and healthy during these crazy times.